This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Samoch Gimel, and we're holding on Samoch Gimel and Aleph as we begin a new Mishnah. A Mishnah that we're circling back around to two types of karbanos, two karban menachos that we've already mentioned in the past, the mincha maracheshes and the mincha machavas. What exactly are they? Who brings these karbanos? Etc. So says the Mishnah, if someone says, Harei alai b'machavas, I take upon myself to bring a machavas. Lo yavi marcheshes. Similarly, marcheshes lo yavi machavas. So now says the Mishnah, okay, so you're telling me that each one is clearly different. Ma bin machavas and marcheshes. What are these things? Says the Gemara, marcheshes. Yesh lo kisui. Marcheshes is a type of utensil that has a cover. Machavas ein lo kisui, more like a frying pan. Chanina ben Gamliel oimer, marcheshes is a muka and umaiseo roichashin. It's both deep and its maisim are roichashim. What does it mean? Is maisim or roichashim? Literally, they shake. We have to see what that means. Machavas is safa, is shallow. Umaisea are kashin, are hard. So numerous qualifications or definitions explaining each entity. Says the Gemara, my taima de Rav Yosi. Where does Rav Yosi get from that the chilik is whether it has a cover or not? Says the Gemara, if it's because marcheshes comes for an aveira that is shakes the heart, that's a marcheshes, and a machavas is what and a machvas comes for something that you said wrong with your mouth. As people say, it's emitting sound. So minaveach mar machavas hones in more on a speech-related avera. Says Gemara, but how do you know? Maybe if I cared. Machavas ta'asiyah mechuyi aleiv. That the machavas, which comes for issues in the heart, and a marcheshes maybe comes for movement of the lips. So how do you know if you're going based on the words? Says the Gemara, I can bring proofs both ways. So rather, says the Gemara, you're right. And it's not stam a word game. What do we teach the word as? But rather, 13 lines to the top, El Gemara, Gemirila, says the Gemara, it's a Messiah, it's a Lachal Moshe Misinai. Exactly what is what. Continue with the next part of the Mishnah. Rav Chanina ben Gamliel Omer. Rav Chanina ben Gamliel taught. It says Gemara, and this is the difference between the marcheshes and the machavas. Says the Gemara, marcheshes amuka. How do I know it's deep? T'chsev. Chol naisav marcheshes. Machavas is safa shal. T'chsev yal machavas. So those are the basic qualifications. Tana Rabbana Bishami Oimrim. Oimrim Zone says Arei Alai marcheshes. He has to wait until Eliyahu comes. We don't know because he didn't say bimarcheshes. He said arei alai marcheshes. What does that mean? So what are the stadim? Mesav kalei, we're unsure. Ial shum kli nikro. We're unsure whether he's referring to a certain utensil, and he's saying to bring the actual utensil. Excuse me, O Dilma, Oyal shum I say. Or he's talking about direction. Doesn't talk about the keli, it talks about the item itself. It says he argues kli haya b'mikdash u'marcheshes shema v'daimek min kalvus, and it's similar to a kalvus amuk, a deep tongues. And when you need dough, when you have this extra dough, munach b'teiches inside of it. Daimek min tapucha chavartim. It's similar to tapuche havartim, which are Avrodian apples, come in belute ayavanim, and it's similar to different fruits that came from Yavon, some sort of acorn. V'oimer v'chol naisem merchus v'achvas alma lo yashem kilim nikru v'lo shamayseim nikru. So that's not the mikar. We continue with the next Mishnah. A Mishnah towards the second half of Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Harei alai b'tanur. If someone says that we continue down the road of all the different types of carbon, Menachos, we're now going to go into the mincha ma'afa tanur, which was a type of mincha, on minchas nedava, voluntary, and you can either bring it as chalois, which is baked with oil, or a kikin, wafers without oil. So says the Mishnah, if someone says, Harei alai b'tanur, someone says, I'm taking it upon myself to bring that which was baked in a tanur, lo yavi ma'afa kupach. You can't bring something that was baked in a kupach. V'lo ma'afa ra'afim. Nor can you bake something that was baked on a tile. O ma'afa yoyrais ha'arbayim. Nor that was baked in a yoyra, a cauldron of arbayim, of Arabs. Rav Yehuda Imer, says Rav Yehuda, no. Ratza mevi ma'afa kufach. If you want, you're yes allowed to bring it made in a kupach. Part A of the Mishnah. Part B of the Mishnah. If someone says, I want to bring a baked mincha, lo yavi mechsa chalais umechsa rikikin, you can't bring half and half. Rabbi Shimon matir, why? Zakter Rabbi Shimon, because lemaisa v'mneishahu carbon echad, it is lemaisa, all one type of carbon. There's two ways to bring the minchas ma'afatanor. You can either bring broach chalois or a kikin. So zakar of Shimon, you could bring even half and half. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, me'afe tanur, a tanur baked, which teaches us, v'loy ma'afe kupach, and not that which was baked in a kupach. V'lo ma'afe rafim, not that was baked in a tile. V'lo ma'afe yiris arbaim. Rabbi Yehuda Imer, says Rabbi Yehuda, tanur shtei be'amim. It says the word tanur 2 times to teach us what? To include. Lahachshir, to come to include ma'afe kupach. Rabbi Shimon Omer, tanur shtei be'amim, echad shtei afiyasa be'tanur, v'echad shtei hekdeishan be'tanur. Says Rabbi Shimon, no. The second, it teaches us that whilst they are betanur, that's when they get their kedusha. Frank the Gemara, 1 second. Yes, Rav Shimon I saw. Does Rav Shimon really hold this svara? Says Rav Shimon, one should say, Shteichal lechem b'anim, the baking of the Shteichal lechem upon him, Kshay Reis b'azara, Ukshay Reis b'beis bagi. So Rav Shimon is the one that says you're allowed to bake these even outside of the azara. So therefore, how can you say that it gets kedusha in the oven? Because then what? You would get kedusha when it's outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Amar Rava, says Rava, Ema explain, Shehekdishan l'shom tanur, they should be get hektish for the sake of the oven. It doesn't actually mean while it is in the oven, but rather for the sake of the oven. And we continue 5 lines on the white lines, quoting the next part of the Mishnah. Rav Shimon said you could. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Gemara. V'chi sakriv, says the pasuk, when you should bring, which teaches us, kishet hakriv lasais davar rishos, when you offer to bring a davar rishos, karban mincha, a carbon mincha, which says, Amar Rav Yehuda, minayin loimer, harei alei minchas mafesh loyavi mechzach alois. So it says Rav Yehuda, you know we learn from this pasuk, how do you know if you say harei alei minchas maf, that you're not allowed to bring mechzach mechzach kikitam loimer carbon mincha, carbon echad, amarti l'cha, it has to be one carbon, v'lo shnayim v'shlosh carbonis. That is Rav Yehuda. Amar lo Rabbi Shimon, says Rabbi Shimon, as we turn over to Samach Beis Beis Chinamar Carbon Kavra and Shnei Pamim. Does it say carbon 2 times, which would teach us that these would be 2 independent carbonis, one bringing one being the Rekikin and one being the Chalois. And then you, Rav Yehuda, would be right. You would be right in the fact that you can't do half and half. But says Rav Shimon, it doesn't say that. V'haloi lo nemar ela karban echad. It says one carbon and Shabri Chals and Rikikin. And for there we learn out Ratzlavi Chalois, maybe Rikikin, maybe. Or Rikikin, maybe. Mechza Chals, Mechza Rikikin, maybe you could do that as well. Uboilin, the Kaimetz Mishneim, you mix them, the Chalois and the Rikikim, and you take one Kaimetz from both of them. And if you did a Kemitza, and you did one type of kemitza for both of them, that works as well. So Rav Shimon is much more expansive. Rav Yehuda Imer, Minayin Loimer Re'elai Minchas Mafa, Shtoyavi Mechsa Chalus Mechsa Kikin, Tamlev Recho Mincha Shetafa Betanor, B'chol Nasim Racheshes, says Rav Yehuda, a different Mekar, that the Torah says, Chol Mincha Shetafa Betanor, you make in the oven. And B'chol Nasim Racheshes, whatever you make in the Maracheshes. V'hamachavas for the machavas like koyin, it should be for the koyin. Ha'makavaisa loiti, it should be for that koyin. V'chol mincha b'lulav ha'shemen, v'chareva l'chol b'nei aron tia. A long and lengthy pasuk. Says Rav Yehuda, let's understand what this pasuk teaches us. Ma v'chol amar lemata shnei minu chalukim. Just like, what do we see? We see by the end of the Menachos, there are two different types of Menachos. The two different and distinct types, one the Rekikin, and one the Chalois. So what does Rav Yehuda? Says the Gemara. Rav Yehuda, Shaber Kamer Rav Shimon. Rav Yehuda, Rav Shimon is tiny and good. How do you answer to Rav Shimon? Amr Lecha responds Rav Yehuda, since it says with oil, command dechsev carbon dummy. It's as if it says it two times. For Rav Shimon, and what does he hold? If it didn't say Hashem v'Shemen, I would have had a different issue. So it had to say Hashem v'Shemen. Why? Because I would have thought Dafka has to be mechzachals and mechzar that a dafka has to be half and half. Aval chalas lechodayu, rekikin lechodayu, emaloi. But if each one is independent, then it would not work. So Zakter of Shivin, Kamashma, that's why I had to say Hashem and Shevin two times. And finally, what does Rav Yehuda do? Rav Yehuda, Hainu Avua. Rav Yehuda is the same as Avua. Rav Yehuda is the same as Rav Yehuda. So what's the second opinion? Says the Gemara, Ikabeinayu Dei Avid. The difference is if you already did it, you already brought carbon of both types, Chatzi Rekikin v'Chatzi Chalois. According to Rav Yehuda, B'diavad, ex post facto, it's going to be kosher. However, according to Rav Yehuda, even B'diavad, it's going to be pasul. We continue, we continue by saying that we have to chazara. And now we continue diving straight in to the sixth parak of Rabbi Yishmael, which we're going to go from the regular, we minchas chayte, minchas kanais, etc. Now into the carbon, shteis irim lechem apanim. Now we go into the carbon mincha, which is a carbon tzibur, that you bring on the second day of Pesach. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Yishmael Omer Hayubah Shabbos. Omer was brought on Shabbos, Mishal son from 3 saw. Ubachol was brought Mechamish from 5 saw. Chachamim Oimrim Echad Shabbos Echachol, it's brought Mishalish from 3 saw. Hayubah came from. Rachanina Askana Kayanim. Rachanina Askana Kayanim comes along and he says, B'Shabbos Hayanixar B'Yachid. Ubimagol. Then on Shabbos, one person would cut. And what would he do? B'magol echad, with one sickle. Ubeku pa echad, put in one basket. Ubechol, and during the weekdays, b'shleisha, 3 people. B'shalosh kupas, 3 baskets. Shalosh magolos, 3 sickles. Chama imrim echad b'shabbos echachol b'shleisha b'shalosh kupas b'shalosh magolos. So Chacham argues that it's always the same of 3. Says the Gemara, let's understand what's going on in the Mishnah. They hold that a good Isarin is 3 sa, Mishleisha sa and Asi. And therefore, and that's where the Chachamim get their din from, that they taught us what? Echad bechol, echad Shabbos, echad chol is mishalish. El Rabbi Yishmael, what is he old Micah Savar? Ikasav Yisar and Muvchar lo yasi, el mechamesh. So if you'll be Shabbos Nami, you should have to bring it from 5. And he mishalish asi, if you'll be chol Nami, so where does it come from? Then in Shabbos it's from 3 Yisar and in chol it's going to be 5. Amar Rava, because Rabbi Yishmael, you know Rabbi Yishmael holds, Yisar and Muvchar, you need to have an Isar Mukhar. But Leitircha, without bother, Asimi Chamish. But Betircha, but if you bother, if you sift it more, Asimi Shalish. So Bechal, Maisina Mechamish, you bring it the best way possible. Dashavicha Milsa, it's a better quality. B'Shabbos, Mutav Sheyarbe b'Melacha Achas Barakada. On Shabbos, you do more of one melacha, more of sifting. Ve'al Yerbe b'Melachas Harbe, a fascinating idea. Now, obviously, this all comes from the fact that in Beis HaMikdash, you're allowed to do the different melachas. That's why they're allowed to do this. But fascinating, says Rabbi Yishmael, you have to melacha, I get it. But I'd rather you do one melacha more times, more sifting, than doing numerous melachas. Stop over here. I'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmaya.